Welcome to Tales of Three, the story so far. If you don't know us, we're an all-queer, dark fantasy Dungeons & Dragons podcast where you three players share the role of Game Master. We prioritize telling compelling stories over game mechanics, but we still love to roll dice and we do a lot. Just know that we make it our own and it has resulted in a very homebrewed version of D&D 5e. If you're new and want to hop into Arc 2, which premieres January 3rd, then buckle up. I'm going to give you a recap of what you've missed. I'm Dusty, by the way. Hi, my pronouns are they, she. If you've been here since episode 1, well, first, thank you for listening to our story. And 2, feel free to also buckle up. I promise to make it a fun listen, and I also promise I am very much a reliable narrator. Wink, wink. What will follow is a recap of the first 30 episodes, so major spoilers ahead, obviously. Also, you can find timestamps in the show notes for each mini arc if you want to jump around. Before we get into it, a quick note about tone and content warnings. This campaign is a dark fantasy that deals consistently with topics of body horror, complicated relationship dynamics, emotional distress, fantasy violence, gore, mechanized spiders, mental health and illness, profanity, and romantic and sexual relations. And now, the recap. Our story began in the small tourist town of Grimford, where our 3 unlucky ones met and reluctantly get caught up trying to solve the mystery of disappearing townspeople. And by caught up, I mean Alara dragged them into trying to learn more about it and some weird rocks she found. And by reluctantly, I mean Ivy and Varys were dragged along by their new friend and wound up trespassing in an underground city that had been lost to time. It is important to note that in the world of Elisora, magic is monitored by a group called the Sigi and controlled by the monarchy. Some say with good reason, because of some very big near world-ending event called the Forsaking, where magic almost ended the world like 700 years ago. It stabilized somewhat, but every once in a while it sinks a town or two. Anyway, magic is ranked by tiers, and anything above tier 5 is a big no-no. So things like teleportation and dimension travel, you guessed it, very much not allowed. There's one portal though in the city of Vitram. It's heavily guarded, and nothing has come through that portal in 762 years. That is, until a certain Miss Ivy Nightbreeze Tinkerfay and her pseudo-dragon Bia made an appearance in Thylacer. See, Ivy's father is from Elisora, but has resided in the Feywild for a long time. But everyone in the Nightbreeze family is given a quest to find their wizard in the tower, and you can only find this wizard in Elisora. So Ivy and Bia come through, determined to find a tower and a wizard. Now imagine her utter dismay when, armed with only an outdated map and outdated stories from her father, Ivy comes to Grimford to find that powerful magic is, pretty much illegal. Oh, and upon asking for help, she gets sniffed by a creepy guy who casts detect magic on her. I'm sure that'll be totally fine. So no magic, no tower, and what's worse, Ivy couldn't find a wizard if they were staring her right in the face. But what she does find is Varys. Or I should say Varys finds her. He's only in Grimford to take a security job. They are trying to lay low, blend in, be an NPC, if you will. Minding their own business, this half-orc, half-elf barbarian? Probably? Yes, definitely a barbarian. Not a caster or a wanted criminal in disguise. Why are you even asking me? Just a guy trying to blend in, which we cannot argue. He did blend in pretty well. Being a changeling will lend to that. Alas, blending in is hard to do when you bump into Ivy Nightbreeze Tinkerface screaming in an alleyway. Add some witty banter between the two, ending with Varys escorting Ivy back to the inn. Because there's a curfew in this town, and people are going missing, and that definitely doesn't have anything to do with the weird guy who Ivy met in the alleyway. Cue Fates Collide trope, or whatever you want to call it. Remember Alara? I mentioned her at the start. We actually meet her first as she's almost getting kidnapped herself in the ruins of the underground city of Lothent. Yeah, magic collapsing towns and all that, you guessed it. Anyway, she escapes thanks to a cool guy named Jennifer, and now she's in town square where Ivy and Varys watch from afar as something snatches her oversized green jacket with many pockets and darts off to an alley. Alara follows, and Reluctant Hero 1 and Reluctant Hero 2 follow after. Well, of course, the alley was a trap. There's 2 assailants trying to steal her jacket, this is important to remember, and a third who moves unseen on the rooftops. A fight ensues, Bia elbow drops a closet, and 2 of the 3 are apprehended and taken to jail. Fantasy jail. Regular jail? Whatever. As our trio talks, Alara's jacket explodes. Not literally. Her pockets of holding stop working. Alara Spindlespark is a scientist who uses science to recreate magic, and some of her projects are, well, works in progress. Her jacket is also very illegal because, many pocket dimensions and all. Remember that from the beginning? So the unlucky ones meet. Alara shows them her magical rocks. She convinces them reluctantly to go on a tour of the underground city to investigate said rocks. They do, because who can say no to our resident cinnamon roll? No one. The answer is no one. Quick backstory. Grimford was founded by Delilah Grimm, and she went missing a year after founding the town, and this weekend is the anniversary of her disappearance. What a coincidence. The town is said to be haunted, and people say the disappearances have to do with the undead that haunt this place. That's not the real story, though. Of course it couldn't be. Back to our trio. Next day before the tour, Varys goes to check in with the head of the town guard, Riven, who tells Varys someone went missing last night, and the mayor assigned 2 people to the guard who look suspiciously similar to the guy who sniffed Ivy. Meanwhile, Ivy and Alara see the mayor unveiling a very bad animatronic statue of Delilah in town square. They go on the tour. Ivy scores a date with Joy, the bubbly tour guide. Ivy is a raging lesbian, by the way. She would want you to know that. But, I digress. Alara is very disappointed in the lack of magical artifacts found on the tour. And cue catalyst that makes our resident grump care about the plot, Varys' friend's child goes missing. And cue the hero thing again. Varys runs off to find Ash with Ivy and Alara following. Okay, so a lot happens. I'm going to ask you to buckle up because I'm going to recount it quickly. Here we go. They fight some bats. Alara almost gets one-shotted by a bat. They find Ash harmed but alive. Ash's dad, Zath, is big mad and takes his child back to their hometown of Osrin. Remember that town name. Varys goes back underground. Again, the girls follow. They find secret dugout passages and feel a thrum of magic. But they get caught by Jennifer, no less. Not so cool after all, and are escorted out before they can discover much more. Varys, now determined to make whoever took Ash pay, sneaks back into the underground city that night, and Ivy and Alara follow him sneakily, of course, and shenanigans ensue. It's genuinely hilarious. So if you want to laugh, go listen to episode 5, Alara and Ivy's special mission, Sneaky Sneaks. Anyway, they traverse the secret passageways and fight 2 creatures from the Hells as they realize there must be portals down in the depths of this underground city. They find dead bodies, and one of the tour guides still alive, and so exploration is once again cut short as they get him to safety. That night, Alara can't sleep. She's never experienced such horrors before, so she asks Varys for help with a project where she brings to life her mechanical spider named Norman, and Varys asks to use her big book of runes to work on a project of their own. We're gonna skip ahead to the next day when the party is followed around by a bunch of robed figures. Cultists. Varys overhears the Mayor Onyx threatening Riven, and they learn that a cult who worshipped Mortimer, the god of death, existed in this area during pre-Forsaking times. Back at the inn, as the trio decides next steps, 2 cultists knock on Varys' door. Alara and Ivy hide in her pockets of holding, and Varys is taken to see the mayor. Alara and Ivy follow, and, well, after a tense conversation between Varys and Onyx and a badass attack from Varys, Onyx does some magic stuff, and we fade to black. Varys and Alara are waking up hanging from literal meat hooks in a freezer, and Ivy wakes up chained to a sacrificial altar next to a portal and a ghostly body. Onyx is there, of course, and while Alara and Varys escape their chains and free some prisoners, one of them being Jennifer, Ivy watches a bunch of cultists prepare for their ritual, where they're going to use her fey blood to open more portals. Big yikes. Now, the big BBEG speech, which Varys is having none of, so he throws a dagger at Onyx and a fight ensues. Who would have thunk? Ivy wild shapes into a bone direwolf. Yes, you heard that right, and yes, it is super badass. And she wrecks some cultist ass. Alara holds her own using acid and her electric glove to keep the cultists at bay, and Varys summons their fuck-all scythe and, well, fucks all shit up. The fight ends with Bone Wolf Ivy crunching on Onyx's neck, and then a ghost lady, aka Delilah Grimm, tells them to run as she works on closing the now 2 portals that have opened. And they run and fight a bunch more cultists and have to be really clever in escaping the collapsing tunnels. I know that I would not do so well as these 3 did. They make it out and collapse as they watch the town of Grimford do the same. And we end this arc with Varys asking if Ivy is from the Feywild. And here we are, Arc 1 wrapped up in a nice little bow, and I'm sure none of that will ever come back to haunt our trio later. So Arc 1.1 is downtime in Osran. I'm gonna speed through, but you should know that this is a 2-weekish period where our trio starts to form some bonds and we learn a lot about our MC's backstory and some of their motivation. If you enjoy slice of life and heavy roleplay, then Arc 1.1 is totally your jam. So the unlucky ones escape and go to Osran, which is actually the place Varys was working before he took the job in Grimford. They head to the Timeless Tankard owned by the retired adventurer Zath and Nim and their 4 kids, one of which was Ash, the person rescued in the tunnels. The trio takes some time to decompress, having some heart-to-hearts, with Varys checking in on both Alara and Ivy, and both the girls avoiding processing their feelings about what happened, which I think is totally relatable. Alara shuts herself in her room, which becomes a mock laboratory where she works on a million projects at once. Ivy goes out on the town and explores Osran and this new world, and Varys goes back to being an NPC, aka lays low and works at the inn. There's great moments where Varys has a sparring session with Zath and gets his ass kicked. Ivy learns to shoot a bow and arrow, which she is really good at, by the way. And Alara hides in her room, completing lots of cool science experiments. Varys and Ivy hang in her room and keep her company. Ivy rips a page out of Onyx's spellbook. Varys gets caught in Alara's snare when he fails a dex save. And the 3 get tipsy at paint night, where Ivy reveals a lot about where she's from in the Feywild. They unravel some of the cult's mystery and realize that some of the gems and rocks are from other planes, hinting that they must have been opening portals down in the depths of Lothent. Varys finds a cipher in a letter and finds a date and place for the next cult meeting. So it looks like we're not done with the Cult of Mourning after all. On top of all this, people are flocking from Grimford telling tales of what happened. Varys warns the others to lay low, which I'm not even sure is kind of possible for them, but we'll find that out. On an outing, they overhear a town crier reporting that the Siji and a prominent council person are heading to Osran to question people. They also overhear that something escaped the portal in Vitram and see wanted posters for a criminal group called the Resented. The group decides it's time to leave, but Alara asks for a few more days as her healing salve is not finished incubating. Yeah, you heard that right, incubating. So the next day, Ivy goes to see a play about the Feywild that paints her queen as an evil witch in the woods. What's worse is that she meets the council person, whose name is Yolan Sophendaris, and he definitely knows Ivy is hiding something. He invites her to a gathering at the Baron's home, and she fails a deception check, and, well, in response, Ivy teleports in front of the guy who is literally searching for magical people. Luckily, with some clever moves like icing over a door handle and wild shaping into a bone mouse, Ivy gets away. Simultaneously, Varys completes an enchanted earring that hides him from divination magic because he's totally not on the run and totally didn't get a message from a man in his head demanding that he come home, and Alara brings to life another mechanized friend, her emotional support robot dog, Pearl. On the run again, the group escapes Osran with Ivy wild-shaped as a spider, Varys putting on a too convincing disguise in 6 seconds, and Alara disguised with some makeup, and whew. Arc 1.2 begins with our party on the run. Again. With no destination in mind until Alara tells them of a tower in the town of Rayus. They decided to head there to see if this is Ivy's wizard tower, and on the way, Varys reveals he is a changeling, and the audience learns that he can also do magic, something he keeps from his 2 traveling companions. Cut to some camp nights and days where Ivy tells Varys about her past and reveals that she is basically royalty back in the Fae. Alara convinces them both to play tag in the rain. Varys asks Alara if they had met before and lets on that she seems familiar to him, but he has some memories of his past that seem to be missing. Oh, and if you like combat and creepy creatures, they fought a hook horror and a stone beast and stopped in a small off-the-map thieves town, and things get interesting once again. Not that they weren't interesting before, but here's another catalyst story thing that's going to launch our MCs into even more disaster. Alara bumps into her ex-partner's cousin, Minnie. And Minnie reveals that Alara was to be engaged to said ex-partner, whose name we don't like to mention, but for your purposes, it's Aiden. An awkward conversation later, and the group sets out again the next day, this time unknowingly followed by an owl, who follows them all the way to Rayus, and spoiler alert, so does Minnie. After exploring the town, the trio goes to bed, and Alara is kidnapped by, you guessed it, Minnie. But do you remember those thieves back in Grimford who wanted to steal her jacket? Minnie was the unseen thief on the roof. It turns out, this thieving trio was hired by Aiden's parents to snatch up Alara, her jacket, and her big book of runes. They are very much not nice to Alara, and as Ivy and Varys trail the group in secret, their anger only grows as Bia watches from above. With an incredibly badass move, Varys shifts into a child and lies his way into the camp, while Ivy in Bone Wolf form stalks unseen from the shadows. A fight breaks out with all parties taking a lot of damage and also pulling off some really cool moves, where Minnie shoots poison daggers from a bracer, the Bone Wolf casts multiple times, ? Alara uses a compulsion gem to control the assailants' movements. Varys promises to eviscerate the group, and we end with a victory. Kind of. A very difficult conversation ensues about what to do with the unconscious thieves. Alara convinces both Varys and Ivy to give the thieves a chance, but another fight erupts, ending with 2 people dead and 1 set free after promising to never speak of these events that took place. Alara, in shock, walks back to the inn with Ivy following behind, while Varys stays in the woods, buries the bodies, and then shifts into another of his forms, that of wanted criminal Carwyn Hamel. He then proceeds to do 2 very illegal things. 1, teleportation to take a trip and see Aiden's parents, and 2, murder. He murders Aiden's parents. Because he does, in fact, know Alara. The fight and some injuries jogged his memory. It comes back to him in pieces, but he knows enough to know that he warned Aiden's parents to leave Alara alone. And, well, we don't have to worry about them anymore, do we? Back at the inn, Alara decides she's getting rid of all of the things that can get them in trouble, which is most of her things. Ivy tries to talk to her, even saying that Ivy herself is technically illegal and can get them in trouble just by being here, but Alara is undeterred and also doesn't care about that. Varys, returns, and they try to wrestle with the events and the killings and seeing and remembering Alara. Eventually, sleep does come. Well, okay, not for Alara. And when they all wake up, she informs them that they are going up to the mountain, to the tower, and they're going to be heroes and save the day. She's having a rough time, so Varys and Ivy agree. They go up, they find the tower and some more stone beasts, and while trying to circumvent a fight with the stone creatures, Alara slips. Ivy tries to catch her and falls, and they all fall off the mountain towards their certain doom, until a portal rips open and swallows them up. And now, dear listeners, you're all caught up. There's obviously a lot we skimmed over and many things we skipped entirely. We definitely encourage you to listen from episode 1, but this should be enough to get you started with Arc 2, if that's what you want to do. Either way, thank you so much for listening. We're really glad you're along for the ride.